You know sometimes the truth hides in plain sight. He's there, in the corner of the room, acting like you're just another person passing by, but something feels different. His words say one thing, yet his actions whisper another story. It's subtle, the way he looks away too quickly, the way he accidentally ends up near you, the way he listens without asking for attention. Today we're going to pull back the curtain and uncover the signs you've been sensing all along, because sometimes the greatest feelings aren't spoken. They're quietly shown. You ever notice how someone can say absolutely nothing, yet still tell you everything? That's the thing about body language. It's the truth that leaks out no matter how much someone tries to cover it up. Words can be carefully chosen, rehearsed, filtered, but the body, it's impulsive. It reacts before the brain has a chance to edit. And when someone is pretending not to like you, but deep down they do, it's the body that usually gives them away first. Think about it, you're talking, and while he's trying to act indifferent, his shoulders are angled toward you. His torso faces you even if his head is turned slightly away, as if he's telling himself, don't be obvious, but his body hasn't gotten the memo. He might keep his hands in his pockets to seem casual, but you notice his feet, they're pointing right at you. We don't realize it, but feet are honest little snitches, they point toward where we want to be. Then there's the eye contact. He might avoid it just a little too much, or he holds it a fraction longer than is normal before quickly looking away. That's the giveaway, the quick retreat. It's almost like a kid who got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He doesn't want you to see how much he was looking. And here's the interesting part. When someone's trying to hide attraction, they'll either overcompensate by avoiding your gaze, or they'll get lost in it for just a second before they remember they're supposed to be pretending. Watch for the micro expressions. These are those split-second flashes across the face that show the real feeling before the mask drops back into place. You say something funny, and he smirks before quickly pressing his lips together like he didn't mean to laugh. You mention someone else's name, and for a moment, just a moment, there's that tiny flicker of something in his eyes, maybe curiosity or a hint of jealousy, before he shrugs it off. And then there's proximity. He might not sit right next to you, but he's not far either. You'll notice he picks a spot that's close enough to be part of your space but not close enough to be called out. When he leans in slightly during conversation, even if it's just for a second, it's his body's way of closing the gap. Attraction often pulls us in, whether we want it to or not. It's also in the way he mirrors you without realizing it. You cross your legs, he crosses his. You lean on your elbow, suddenly he's leaning too. Mirroring is one of the most subconscious ways humans connect. It's like the body is saying, I'm with you, I'm aligned with you, even when the mind is saying, don't let her know. And now sometimes it's not even the big movements, it's the stillness. Most people fidget or shift around when they're disinterested. But when he's tuned into you, his movements slow down. He's present, focused. The world in that moment shrinks to the conversation you're having, even if on the surface it looks casual. Pay attention to the little protective gestures too. Maybe he straightens his shirt when you approach, or brushes his hair back, or adjusts his posture. These are small, almost invisible acts of self-presentation. We do them when we want to be noticed, even if we're pretending not to want attention. And then there's the smile, the real one, not the polite closed-mouth smile you give a stranger in passing, but the one that softens the eyes, lifts the cheeks, and almost looks like it caught him by surprise. The kind of smile that sneaks in before he can stop it. That's not something you can fake easily. See, body language is like the unedited version of someone's feelings. If you pay close enough attention, you'll catch the moments he probably wishes you hadn't. You'll see the truth in the way he orients himself toward you, in the subtle lean of his shoulders, in the shift of his feet, in the way his gaze keeps finding you even when he's supposed to be looking elsewhere. The irony is, the harder someone tries to hide interest, the more it leaks out in these unspoken ways. Because attraction isn't just in the mind, it's in the muscles, in the posture, in the way someone occupies space around you. You can fake words, you can fake tone, but the body will always tell on you. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's funny how some people seem to have a built-in GPS that always brings them right into your orbit. They'll swear it's just coincidence, just, oh, I happened to be here too, but deep down you know better. When someone is pretending not to like you but secretly does, they often can't resist finding ways to be around you, even if they package it as something else entirely. Maybe you've noticed he shows up at places he never used to go suddenly. He's grabbing coffee from the shop down the street where you always stop in the morning. Or he's just passing by when you're out with friends, and somehow he ends up joining the group. At work, he might be the one who always seems to need to walk past your desk, even when there's absolutely no reason for him to be in that part of the office. He won't call it out, and neither will you, but it keeps happening. The truth is, proximity isn't always random. We gravitate toward the people who make us feel something, and when a man is trying to keep his feelings under wraps, he often looks for the smallest, safest excuses to cross paths with you. He might volunteer for the same committee, join the same club, or take up a new hobby that surprise happens to match yours. It's not that he's stalking you, it's that his interest pulls him toward your world like a magnet, even when he's trying to play it cool. There's also the just so happens a timing. You're leaving the building, and he's suddenly right there holding the door. You're at the grocery store, and he walks in 2 minutes later. Sure, maybe it's pure chance the first time. But when it becomes a pattern, it's usually not an accident. He's paying attention to your habits more than he wants to admit, and he's slipping himself into those moments without making it too obvious. Sometimes he won't even talk to you much when he's near, at least not right away. It's enough for him just to be in the same space, to catch your energy, to feel connected without exposing how he feels. He might hover on the edge of the group conversation or sit a few tables away, close enough to be part of the scene but far enough to avoid suspicion. It's a way of saying, I'm here, without actually saying it. And then there's the group dynamic. If you're both part of the same circle, notice how he navigates it. He might not sit next to you every single time, that would be too obvious, but watch how often he finds a reason to drift into your part of the room. It could be helping you carry something, asking a quick question, or joining a conversation you're already in. These moments are short, but they add up. They're his way of being close without crossing the line of his own self-imposed rules. What's interesting is how much effort this actually takes. To be coincidentally in the right place over and over means rearranging his schedule, making choices he wouldn't otherwise make, maybe even going out of his way geographically. But because the interest is there, it doesn't feel like work to him. It feels natural, worth it. Sometimes it's subtle to the point you could almost miss it. Maybe he chooses the seat with the best line of sight to where you'll be speaking. Maybe he's always around when there's something new happening in your world, or maybe he doesn't even approach you, he just positions himself where he can be part of the same moment. Those are the little tells. This kind of behavior isn't about being pushy or obvious. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about lingering in the spaces where connection can happen without forcing it. And while he might be doing it under the guise of just happening to be there, what's really happening is he's giving himself a chance. A chance to be part of your day, even if it's in small, quiet ways. You might even notice he uses shared environments as a safety net. If you're both at a social event, that's an easy cover. No one questions why he's there. But if you pay attention, you'll see he positions himself where the likelihood of bumping into you is highest. It's the strategic kind of accidental. Here's the thing: people don't invest time in being near someone they feel nothing for. And when you start connecting the dots, the repeated coincidences, the timing, the way he seems to drift into your proximity, you realize that while he might be pretending not to like you, he's not doing a very good job of staying away. Because no matter how much someone tries to hide it, you can't fake where you choose to be. One of the easiest things to fake is casual conversation. You can nod along, throw in a few polite responses, even pretend to be half distracted while you scroll through your phone. But you can't fake genuine listening, that kind of listening, the kind where someone remembers the details you barely even remember saying. That's intentional. That's someone storing little pieces of you away, even when they're pretending not to care. It's in the way he reacts when you mention something important to you. Maybe weeks ago, you told him about an upcoming meeting you were nervous about. You didn't bring it up again, but the next time you see him, he asks, "Hey, how did that meeting go?" That's not random. That's someone paying attention when you thought no one was, and it's not just the big, obvious things. It's the small, almost throwaway details. You mentioned your favorite coffee order in passing, and the next time you're together, he somehow knows exactly what to grab for you. You told a quick story about your dog, and months later, he remembers the name. You complained once about a song you can't stand, and the next time it's playing, he notices your reaction before you even say anything. That's what happens when someone listens with more than just their ears. They're listening with intention. There's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is passive, listening is active. It requires focus, energy, and a willingness to store those details away. If he's really not interested, why would he go through the trouble? Why would he keep track of what you said 3 months ago when most people can't remember what they had for lunch yesterday? The answer is simple: because it matters to him, you matter to him. What's interesting is how subtle he might be about it. He won't necessarily bring it up in a way that draws attention. It might just slip out in conversation. You're talking about your weekend plans and he says, "Oh, that's kind of like that trip you took last year, right? The one where it rained the whole time," and you're standing there wondering, how does he even remember that? It's because when you told the story, he was actually present for it, not half in, not pretending to listen while thinking about something else. Fully there. Sometimes it's not even about what he says, but how he responds in the moment. If you mention you're tired, he notices the tone in your voice, not just the words. If you sound excited, he matches that energy, even if he tries to keep it muted. He picks up on changes in your mood because he's tuned in to your baseline. That doesn't happen by accident. And here's the thing people who aren't interested usually forget. They forget your schedule, your preferences, your little quirks. But when someone is trying not to show they like you while still caring, they end up holding onto these pieces of information without even realizing how obvious it makes them. You might think you're the one reading between the lines, but really, he's the one writing the lines without meaning to. There's also a kind of unspoken respect in that kind of listening. It's saying, "What you say is worth remembering." Even if he never says those words out loud, the act itself speaks louder than anything else. He might never openly tell you how much he values what you share, but he shows it in the way those little details keep showing up later. It's worth noticing the consistency. Anyone can remember 1 or 2 details if they happen to stand out. But when it happens over and over, when he remembers the restaurant you mentioned once, the way you take your tea, the fact that you hate being late, that's not coincidence. That's a pattern, and patterns reveal truth. Now, he might disguise this attention under the umbrella of being just observant or just friendly. But think about how many other people in his life he's doing this for. Usually, it's not many. We save that level of focus for the people who truly matter to us, even if we're trying to play it off as nothing special. Sometimes, you'll see it in the way he circles back to something you said before. You'll be in the middle of a completely different conversation, and he'll say, "That reminds me of what you said about," and then repeat your words almost exactly. That's a clear sign he not only heard you but kept it with him. And maybe the most telling part is this: he doesn't just listen to respond, he listens to understand. He's not waiting for his turn to talk, he's not distracted by his phone. In those moments, you have his full attention. And even if he tries to hide it under a casual expression, the fact that he keeps showing you, in small ways, that he's been listening. That's the truth slipping through, because you can pretend not to like someone all you want, but you can't pretend to care enough to remember. Teasing is one of those things that can be read 2 very different ways. On the surface, it can look playful, lighthearted, even meaningless. But underneath, it can be loaded with intention. When someone is pretending not to like you but deep down they do, teasing can be their safe zone, a way to get close without actually admitting how they feel. It's a space where they can test the waters, see how you react, and build a connection without ever stepping over the line they've drawn for themselves. It often starts with something small. Maybe he comments on the way you always order the same thing at lunch, or he pokes fun at your favorite TV show. He's not being cruel, there's a warmth behind it, a little spark in his eyes that gives away the difference between mockery and genuine affection. The joke isn't about tearing you down, it's about creating a little back and forth, something that feels shared. There's a reason teasing is such a common sign of hidden feelings. It's disarming, it lets him get close to you without having to risk rejection in a serious way. If you respond positively, he can lean in a little more. If you don't, he can play it off as a just joking. It gives him control over how much vulnerability he shows, and it keeps his feelings safely under the surface. At least in his mind. But here's what's interesting: teasing, when it's coming from genuine interest, often has a strange dual nature. On one hand, it's playful. On the other hand, it's oddly attentive. He'll notice the little things about you that most people overlook, and those become the basis for his jokes. Maybe it's the way you always mix too much sugar into your coffee. Maybe it's how you get overly competitive during games. These aren't random observations, they're things he's picked up because he's paying attention to you. You might also notice that the teasing is balanced with respect. He might joke about you being a creature of habit, but the moment someone else says something that crosses a line, he's the first one to shut it down. That's because his teasing isn't meant to hurt, it's meant to connect. There's an invisible boundary he won't cross because underneath the jokes there's care. Sometimes the teasing will be mixed with small compliments, but they're disguised so well you almost miss them. He might make fun of your obsession with a certain snack, but then say, "I mean, it's kind of your thing, it wouldn't be you without it." That's a compliment wrapped in a joke. It's a way of saying, "I notice you, I like this about you," without actually coming out and saying it plainly. And it's not always about what's said, sometimes it's about timing. He might tease you when you're feeling stressed as a way to break the tension. He might throw in a light joke when the conversation is getting too serious, giving you both a little breathing room. It's a way of keeping the connection comfortable, of making sure the energy between you doesn't get too heavy. The delivery matters too. Real interest tends to show up in tone, a softer voice when he says it, a grin that creeps in before he can stop it. There's usually eye contact involved, maybe even that slight lean toward you that says he's engaged in the moment. He's not tossing out jokes from across the room without looking at you. He's right there, waiting to see your reaction. Of course, not every tease is a grand declaration of love, and that's where you have to look at the bigger picture. Is it happening consistently? Is it paired with other signs, the body language, the attention to detail, the way he shows up in your space? When it is, the teasing becomes less about the words themselves and more about the pattern they create. There's also a certain kind of risk he's taking with each tease. Even though it's safer than an outright confession, it still puts him out there. Every time he pokes fun at something about you, he's opening the door just a crack to see if you'll walk through. And if you tease him back, it creates a rhythm, a small, unspoken agreement that you both enjoy the interaction. Teasing at its core is a form of intimacy. It's not for strangers, it's for people who have built a certain level of trust, even if they haven't labeled it as such. And when it's coming from someone who's pretending not to like you, it becomes one of the few ways they allow themselves to express their feelings without fully exposing them. They might think they're being clever, hiding behind humor, keeping things light so you won't notice, but the truth is, when teasing is paired with that spark in the eyes, the subtle compliments, the protective boundaries, and the careful attention to your quirks, it's not just a joke anymore. It's the safest way they know to say, "I like you," without actually saying it. Sometimes, the truth doesn't come directly from the person you're watching, it comes from the people around them. Friends have this way of accidentally revealing what someone is trying hard to hide. They're not always subtle about it, either. When a guy is pretending not to like you, but really does, his friends often become part of the giveaway. And the interesting thing is, they don't even have to say a word for you to notice it. Pay attention to the way his friends act when you're around. You walk into a room, and suddenly, the vibe shifts. Maybe one of them nudges him under the table. Maybe there's this quick exchange of glances, the kind where they're trying not to laugh. It's that subtle we know something energy that friends can't seem to hide. Sometimes, they'll even smirk or raise their eyebrows at him when you speak, and he'll either roll his eyes or try to shut them down with a look. Friends are like mirrors, but less careful. They reflect the truth without rehearsing it. If they know he likes you, they might tease him when you're there, sometimes in ways you only notice after you think about it later. They'll make a casual comment that seems harmless, but if you connect the dots, you realize it was a clue. Something like, "Oh, so you finally made it," when you arrive, followed by all of them looking in his direction. Or, "Guess who's here," said loud enough for him to hear before you've even walked over. Even their body language can tell you a lot. If his friends all look at him when you speak, or if they suddenly go quiet when you walk up, that's a signal. They're aware of the dynamic, and their reactions often betray whatever he's been trying to hide. It's like they're silently watching for his response, because they know there's something there worth noticing. Then there's the way they include you, or don't. Sometimes, his friends will go out of their way to pull you into the group, making sure you're part of the conversation. Other times, they'll give you and him a little space without making it obvious, like they're running interference so he can talk to you without distractions. Either way, those actions are rarely random. They're subtle ways of supporting what they know he's feeling. On the flip side, some friends can't resist stirring the pot a little. They might drop hints in a joking way, just to see how you'll react. They'll ask you questions that seem unrelated but are actually fishing for information. Or they'll tell a story about him that puts him in a flattering light, the kind of thing friends don't bother to do unless they're trying to help someone's case. And here's the thing, guys aren't always great at hiding their feelings in front of their friends. He might be careful around you, but when he's with his group, he relaxes a bit, his guard drops. Maybe he laughs a little louder when you say something funny, maybe he pays more attention to where you are in the room, and they notice. His friends pick up on it, and because they know him well, they can see the difference in his behavior when you're around versus when you're not. Sometimes the biggest clue comes from how they all interact together. If his friends seem to know more about you than you've told them directly, that's telling. Maybe they ask about your job or your favorite restaurant, even though you never mentioned it to them. That means he's been talking about you, and people don't bring someone up in conversation over and over unless that person matters to them. You might even notice little protective moments. If one of his friends is teasing you in a way that goes too far, he's quick to step in. Or if someone else is trying to get your attention, they exchange a look with him first, almost like they're checking if it's okay. These unspoken signals within the group say more than any direct comment could. Of course, not all friends are going to make it obvious. Some are better at playing it cool, but even then, there are cracks. The quick grin when they see you talking together. The way they seem to be watching from across the room. The shift in the group's energy when you join in. These moments aren't random, they're part of a bigger picture you can only see if you're paying close attention. The truth is, people can hide their own feelings for a long time, but it's much harder to control how others react to those feelings. Friends don't always have the same filter, and they're not as invested in keeping up the act, so while he might be careful with his words and actions, his friends often give him away without meaning to. Because if they know he likes you, it shows in the glances, in the jokes, in the silences, and in the way the entire room shifts just a little when you walk in. One of the most confusing things someone can do when they secretly like you is act warm and close one moment, and then distant the next. It's that hot and cold rhythm that leaves you wondering, what changed? You'll have a great conversation, you'll feel a genuine connection, and then the next day, it's like he's pulled back behind an invisible wall. It's not that he's lost interest, in fact, it's usually the opposite. The push and pull is his way of managing feelings he's not ready to admit. When someone is pretending not to like you but does, this inconsistency is often about self-protection, the warm moments. That's the real him slipping through, the version that's comfortable, relaxed, and not overthinking. He lets himself laugh a little louder, ask more personal questions, maybe linger in the conversation longer than necessary. Those are the times when he forgets to keep the mask on, but then comes the pullback. That's when he remembers, oh wait, I'm not supposed to be showing this much, and suddenly he's a little more reserved, maybe even shorter in his responses. It can feel frustrating, but from his perspective, the back and forth is safer than just staying consistent. If he stayed warm all the time, he'd worry about giving himself away. If he stayed cold all the time, he'd miss being around you, so instead, He bounces between the two, letting himself enjoy your presence, then retreating just enough to feel like he's in control again. Sometimes you'll see this shift happen within the same conversation. He'll be laughing, engaged, leaning in, and then something will flicker across his face, and he'll suddenly check his phone or change the topic. It's like he catches himself being too obvious and quickly pumps the brakes. Other times, the warm and cold moments will stretch over days. He'll text you often for a while, and then suddenly go quiet. He'll seek you out in a group one day, and then seem to avoid you the next. This pattern is often less about you and more about the internal tug-of-war he's dealing with. On one side, he wants to be close. On the other, he's determined to keep his feelings hidden, maybe out of fear, maybe because of timing, maybe because he's not sure how you'd respond. That constant conflict shows up in the way he interacts with you. The hot moments are telling, there when he's most himself around you. He might tell you a story he wouldn't share with just anyone. He might open up about something personal, like a challenge he's facing or a goal he's working toward. In those moments, he's letting his guard down without even realizing it, and if you pay attention, you'll notice his energy is different, more genuine, more present, more connected. The cold moments, on the other hand, aren't necessarily rejection, they're more like pauses. It's his way of stepping back to regain a sense of control. You might notice he avoids initiating conversation, or that his responses are shorter than usual. He could even create physical distance, sitting further away or keeping interactions brief. These aren't signs that he's lost interest, they're signs that he's trying not to let it show. What makes this pattern tricky is that it can be hard to read. If you didn't know better, you might think he's just inconsistent by nature, but when the warmth is genuine and the pullback feels deliberate, it's often a sign of something deeper. The key is in how quickly the warmth returns. If he was truly losing interest, the distance would grow over time. But with hot and cold behavior, he always comes back. He can't seem to stay away for long. Sometimes, the shift from hot to cold is triggered by specific moments. Maybe someone else notices the connection and teases him about it, making him retreat. Maybe he catches himself smiling at you for too long. Or maybe he realizes he's shared more than he planned. These little triggers remind him that he's supposed to be keeping his feelings under wraps, and that's when the coldness sets in. But here's what you'll notice over time: the hot moments start to outweigh the cold ones. Even though he's trying to manage the distance, it gets harder and harder to keep it up. The truth has a way of slipping through, and each time he comes back from the cold phase, it's usually with a little less hesitation. This push-pull dynamic can be confusing, but it's also revealing. People don't wrestle with themselves like that over someone they feel nothing for. That kind of emotional back and forth takes effort. It means he's invested enough to care about how much he's showing, and careful enough to keep trying to hide it. And while it might leave you guessing in the moment, if you look at the overall pattern, the story becomes clear. He's not pulling away because he doesn't like you. He's pulling away because he does. So here's the truth: you can keep guessing, overthinking, and replaying moments in your head. Or you can take what you've learned today and step into clarity. Stop letting uncertainty write your story. Pay attention to the signs, trust your gut, and when you see the truth, have the courage to act on it. Because life's too short to live in a maybe. The moment you choose certainty, you choose freedom, and that's where real confidence begins. Now go make that choice.